Hey, this is Joel. Thank you for checking out this video. This is just kind of a fun video. I've just been kind of screwing around with drum sounds, seeing what kind of weird, over-the-top things I can do with some otherwise very basic, even mundane drum sounds. I love doing this kind of stuff, and every once in a while I just play around to play around, and I kind of like what I did here, so I thought it might be worth shooting a little video to show it to you. So I will start just by playing it for you, and then I'll kind of explain what I did. So here's what it sounds like. So it's big. It's a big sound, over the top, real compressed, real in your face though. It's not really roomy. In fact, I took the room mics out. There's not even any room mics in this mix. The snare drum, obviously, it sounds like there's a trigger, some kind of electronic white noise thing going on. Okay, so, and just for fun, let me show you what this sounds like without having to rebalance the faders, keeping the faders the way they are now, but it'll give you an idea. Let me just bypass all this stuff and I'll show you what the drums basically sound like unaffected. So just, like I say, the faders aren't set for a good blend of just these elements. But it's just a normal drum kit with so I'm going to go through drum by drum, and basically I've got a kick, an inside kick and an out front kick, snare top and bottom, hi-hat, two toms, which are mic'd from the top, and overheads. Let me just start with the kick drum. So the internal kick, what I've done here, I'll bypass these and just show you. So I'm using a gate on the bass, but notice the release on this kick. The hold's almost 200 milliseconds. Excuse me, got a little bit of a cold I'm trying to get over. And the release is almost 600 milliseconds, which is pretty slow. I don't normally do that, but the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going from the expander into a compressor, and I'm compressing the snot out of it, basically. I've got the threshold way down here at minus 45, so even though it's only 3-to-1 ratio, it's just compressing like crazy, and I've got gain makeup at 24 dB. It's almost 30 dB, getting close to, of reduction. And that's why I have the expander, or the gate rather, so slow. It's because if I went quick, it would just chop it off. And I kind of like the bloom of the, oh hush, leave me alone. The bloom of the longer setting. And then I went ahead and put some Renaissance bass on it. This is a Waves plug-in, which adds a ridiculous amount of low end. I think I just opened it and left it basically stock, just moved this frequency thing to 60. And that makes a huge difference, as you can see. Tremendous amount of authority. Okay, so let's go to the outside kick mic. This is out front the drum. Doing a similar thing here where I'm gating it, slow release, got a 1 second release on that. And then compressing the snot out of it again. Basically, I think these might be the same settings. I might have just copied this one over to this one. Looks pretty much like it, yeah. But the reason I put the gates on these is if you listen to it without the gate, I mean, that's kind of cool, but it's sort of messy when you put it in with everything else. The gate does pretty much limit it to just the bass drum for the most part. You get leakage from the snare, but normally I don't like leakage from the snare, but in this situation where it's over the top, I really don't care. It's kind of cool, and it adds a little bit of a distance and a room sound to the snare since I'm not using room mics. But you can hear without the gate how kind of out of control that is. So the gates are in front of the compressor because once you compress the snot out of these, I mean, the attack on the compressor is pretty quick. It's as fast as it goes, 10 microseconds. So So it's basically chopping the attack off entirely. So getting good control with a noise gate after the attack has been removed and it's been just smashed to smithereens with a compressor, it's a little harder to do. So that's why I put the gate in front. Okay, so let's move on to the snare drum. The top of the snare I didn't really do much with. This really is just to get some attack. I just brightened it up a little bit. Put a noise gate on it. Just to kind of clean it up. Just a little bit of, what is this? 3.5K basically. Didn't really do much to it. I just wanted it to give some attack to the white noise sound. Now let's talk about the white noise sound. This was kind of fun. What I did here, this is just the bottom snare mic. Okay. What's that, 9.4 minus 9.4? So what I did first with this is compress the snot out of it. Getting 30 dB of reduction, super fast attack, really fast release. I mean, 17 millisecond release is ridiculous. So I'll put this back down here about where it was, somewhere around there. And you can just hear it rattling all around, which is kind of earthy and cool and lo-fi and neat in and of itself. But I went ahead and put a noise gate on it. And this gate, again, like I was saying over here on the bass drum, I don't put gates generally after hyper-compressed stuff. It's hard to isolate. But you can do it if you use a side chain. And on this expander, on this gate, I have done exactly that. I've put a side chain off of bus 31, the top of the snare, using a pre-fader send. I've got a -3 is the level on the send there. So this is a bus 31 is the key input, and I'm accessing the key input. So basically, it's opening and closing based off of the top snare mic. And I've got a very fast release and a hold of 384 milliseconds. It's basically what feels like at times. Open, close, open, close. Okay, and that was kind of cool, but then I wanted to make it sound a little more electronic, make it sound more like white noise or sort of the Simmons drum white noise analog stuff from the 80s. So I took my handy dandy Harrison EQ here. It doesn't have to be a Harrison, you can use whatever. It's just what I use because I also like the high pass filters and low pass filters, and so I brought the filters in a bit to narrow the bandwidth, and then I just cranked, looks like somewhere around 1K or so, something in the midsection. And that makes a huge difference. And bypass that. So that really makes it. And as an alternative, if you don't like the open closed, pop, 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 then you could use a much lower hold and a much longer release. And it'll sound more natural, except for the crazy EQ. But it's a different alternative. And I like that white noisy thing because it does make the drums feel a little more electronic, or maybe if this is a kind of an over-the-top compressed drum mix, aggressive sounds for an industrial type of thing. I think treating the bottom snare to really kind of accentuate the white noise effect is a great way of sort of matching that character. Oh, stop it. Why do you keep... I must have too many programs open or something. But anyway, okay, and so then the hi-hat, I basically left it alone, put a little distortion on it. Just the air distortion that comes with Pro Tools. Don't have a whole lot of it in the mix. And then the toms I'm compressing. And I've got them also, by the way, chopped. If you look at the waveforms. And that kills all the bleed. I don't have to worry about setting a noise gate or anything. It does mean a little work in editing. But and I'm compressing them hard with 1176 style plugins, and then the room mics, the overheads, I'm compressing pretty significantly. Oh, here, let me go ahead. It's pretty decent amount of compression. I mean, 6 dB or so. So they're just, and I'm not even EQing it or anything. They're not really doing much at all in the way of EQ. Did I EQ anything? I EQ'd the snare with the channel strip. I don't think I EQ'd anything else. This is all dynamic control, which actually is a total aside to what I'm telling you here, but it is something I think that might be useful to know. I find that I get better control over drums and really over a lot of things by the use of dynamic control. You can use slower attacks, and maybe that's worth a video to demonstrate, but you can use slower attacks and faster releases to put things up front and in your face to allow the transients through before it clamps down, and it makes things sit really close to the listener. The perception is that it's close. Or you can use fast attacks that bite off the attack, and then use a slower release, so there's more space in between each sort of attack or transient portion of it, where it's not recovering quite as fast. So it winds up feeling more distance. And you can do dynamic control and really give things in a mix a place before you have to start screwing with filter electronics. And like I say, up on the snare drum, I've got a noise gate going, but I'm not really doing anything else. I don't think I'm compressing it, am I? No, I'm not compressing it. I do have a noise gate here and a little EQ just to make it pop a little bit, so that it gives an attack to an otherwise white noisy, analog-ish kind of sound. So again, this is what it all sounds like. That's what it sounds like normally. For what it's worth, the bass drums, my 24 by 14s, my late 70s Ludwig kit, 24 by 14 kick, a 12-inch by 8 tom, and 16 by 16 floor tom, and a 5 by 14 Superphonic. Real basic kit. So nothing special about the drums. So there you go. Just fun with drums. Thanks for checking this out. I hope it gives you some creative ideas on how to do some unusual things maybe with your drums. Oh, and please check out my blog at www.joelcameron.com. Thanks, I appreciate it.